It's Monday, March 16th, 2026. Ruthless competence continues in the Iran war. The White House emphasizes the economy. And did Tucker Carlson get played? Next on the AM Update. Operation Epic Fury continues. The White House provided these stats over the weekend. Ballistic missile attacks from Iran to outgoing countries, neighboring countries down 90%. Drone attacks down by 95%. 6,000 targets struck by U.S. forces alone. 90 and over Iranian vessels destroyed. Entire ballistic missile base and capacity destroyed. Iranian Navy assessed as combat ineffective. And, of course, continued air dominance over the skies of Iran. It seems like the ruthless competence of coalition forces, that would be the United States and Israel, just continues. And then there was this big news over the weekend as well. President Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, "Moments ago, at my direction, the United States Central Command executed one of the most powerful bombing raids in the history of the Middle East and totally obliterated every military target in Iran's crown jewel, Kharg Island." He was sure to mention that it was just military targets that were being targeted, military targets on Kharg Island. And you heard him refer there to the crown jewel of Iran's regime. That is very much a fitting descriptor of Kharg Island. That is where I believe what I've researched, 90% of their oil exports go through this island out in the middle of the sea. So that is a major escalation, and it's sending a signal to what's left of Iran's regime. We will go after your golden goose. You better play ball. Well, according to NBC News in an interview with President Trump, Iran has been trying to reach out to the U.S. and coalition forces to try to get a ceasefire deal. President Trump telling NBC News he's not interested in that quite yet. According to the Pentagon, 6 more airmen were announced dead. We told you about that KC-135 that went down over friendly aerial territory in western Iraq late last week. Major John A. Klinner of Auburn, Georgia, was aboard. Captain Ariana Savino of Covington, Washington, aboard as well. Tech Sergeant Ashley Pruitt of Bardstown, Kentucky. All three of those airmen were assigned to the 6th Air Refueling Wing, MacDill Air Force Base in Florida. Also, Captain Seth R. Koval of Mooresville, Indiana. Curtis J. Angst of Wilmington, Ohio. Technical Sergeant Tyler Simmons of Columbus, Ohio. Those three were assigned to the 121st Air Refueling Wing at Rickenbacker Air National Guard Base in Columbus, Ohio. They were aboard that KC-135 that tragically went down in what has been speculated to be was not a friendly fire or hostile fire incident, but it's been speculated that it was an air traffic mishap. Of course, the skies, certain corridors over the Middle East right now, extremely busy as these bombing campaigns continue. Well, I told you Donald Trump not interested in making a ceasefire deal with the Iranians quite yet. Let's check in on Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who says that, after all, we'd be willing to talk about getting rid of our nuclear material.
I never said that we are going to make bombs. I said that we have 440 kilos of 60% enriched material, and that was not a secret. That is what is mentioned in the reports of the IAEA. So I said that, look, this is mentioned in the report. This, if enriched more, can be good enough for 10 bombs, as your own experts claims. So we are ready to give them away. We are ready to dilute them, to downblend them into lower degrees. And by saying that, I wanted to say that the concession that we are making is really big.
So there's Araghchi, Iran's foreign minister, saying, "Oh, you know what? Actually, after some deep thought, we're ready to get rid of all of our fissile material." Right. He also added this on CBS's Face the Nation. He was asked why he gets to use Zoom to do these interviews with Western media outlets.
I just do want to point out, you're speaking to us via Zoom. The Iranian people don't have open internet access, but you do. Why?
Well, because I'm the voice of Iranians, and I have to defend their right. So this is why I have access to internet to just have our voice being heard by the international community. But internet is closed because of the security reasons, because we are under attack, we are under aggression, and we have to do everything to protect our people. In any country, there are, urgent measures taken for the sake of war.
So there's Arghachi, Iran's foreign minister, yet again saying we don't have internet for our citizens because we're trying to protect them in a time of war. So taking away their ability to communicate emergency information makes a lot of sense. I think it's pretty apparent now. If you just look at the actions and some of the words, the goalposts are moving when it comes to the pro-Iran coalition. First, this was a war of aggression, that they're never going to win. Iran is prepared for this. Then it was, we're ready for the long haul. We're ready to go in for years if we have to. Now we're ready to give up our fissile material. And also, we have internet for me, but not for thee. I mean, the goalposts just keep moving. They just keep moving. And you just look at some of their posturing. Over the weekend, it was, I guess anybody who's not an ally of the United States and Israel, they can pass through the Strait of Hormuz and not worry about it, which is basically all traffic through this Strait of Hormuz. They've been kind of waffling overall on what they're doing with Hormuz. I don't even think they know what they're doing because their defenses have been so fragmented. If you just look at what they're posturing, how they're posturing, it's clear they don't believe they have the upper hand on any level. Let's go to this now. Here's Tucker Carlson.
So the other day I found out that the CIA is preparing some kind of criminal referral against me, a crime report to the Department of Justice on the basis of a supposed crime I committed. What's that crime? Well, talking to people in Iran before the war.
17 seconds. There's Tucker Carlson saying that he believes the CIA and other deep staters are attempting to prepare a criminal indictment, a criminal referral to the Department of Justice for what he says were communications with people inside Iran prior to the outbreak of this war. Now, he never, in this 5-minute clip he posted on Saturday evening, never actually articulates who those people are that he was talking to inside Iran. And it's clear from that 5-minute clip, if you listen to it in its entirety, that he is definitely trying to get out ahead of something, some story, or he's just completely psychopathically lying to get clicks. We'll talk more about this and what's really going on a little bit later. According to the IDF and their intelligence, they made this announcement on Sunday. The brother of the terrorist behind the U.S. synagogue attack in Michigan was a Hezbollah terrorist. Now, I know it's not shocking to you that a brother of a terrorist is also a terrorist, but this is now confirmed thanks to Israel. Hezbollah commander Ibrahim Muhammad Ghazali was responsible for managing weapons operations within a specialized branch of the Badr unit. That unit is responsible for launching hundreds of rockets towards Israeli civilians throughout the war. His brother, Ayman Muhammad Ghazali, carried out the terror attack in Michigan last Thursday. Ibrahim, his brother, was eliminated in an IAF airstrike recently. So we've got basically an entire Hezbollah terror cell going on in Michigan right now, is what this news is basically confirming. Of course, anybody with eyes to see and ears to hear knew that Dearborn Heights was just a walking, talking terror cell for quite a while. On the topic of who in the White House might be sowing discord when it comes to the war in Iran, we heard from Vice President J.D. Vance for the first time in quite a while. There's been speculation that he is a dissenting voice on the Iran war. Here's how he responds to that.
Well, Bill, I appreciate the question. I know you guys have to ask it, but imagine the situation. We're in the situation room where you can't even take your iPod in there, or your AirPods, I guess what they're called. You can't take your iPhone in there. You can't take anything in there because it is the most classified space anywhere in the world. And I sit there with Pete Hegseth and General Kane and Marco Rubio and the entire White House team, and the president and I and the entire senior team are talking about the options and about what we need to do and about how we must best protect the American people. I hate to disappoint you, but I'm not going to show up here and in front of God and everybody else tell you exactly what I said in that classified room, partially because I don't want to go to prison, and partially because I think it's important for the President of the United States to be able to talk to his advisors without those advisors running their mouth to the American media.
J.D. Vance on his relationship with President Trump during the Iran war. Vice President Vance also pivoted to talk about the economy as well.
People who don't deserve it. The entire Democratic Party, all of these policy disagreements, all of that stuff doesn't matter compared to the fact that they don't see themselves as your advocates, and Republicans, we do. Now, I'm not saying that's true of the Democrats all across our country. I think there are a lot of Democrats like my mama and papa were Democrats, conservative Democrats who love their country. But the Democrats that we have in Washington, D.C., they are a different breed. And we cannot fool ourselves that something has gone fundamentally wrong in that party. Their reason for existing is to fight for fraud, to fight for corruption, and to fight for people who have no right to be in this country. And Michael Whatley and Lori Buckout, their reason for being is to fight for you, and that's why we're here today.
So that's Vice President Vance making those comments in North Carolina. That's why you heard him invoke Senate candidate Michael Whatley. Also, the White House's economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, continues to pound the drumbeat that he expects to see improvement in the overall health of the economy throughout the course of the year.
First of all, it's not going to last for months. President Trump's team has briefed us that it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks, beginning 2 weeks ago, and that we're ahead of schedule. And so, second, if it did last for a long time, it wouldn't really do a lot of harm to the U.S. economy. Now, certainly there'd be pocketbook issues that we'd have to address, but the bottom line is that the U.S. produces so much oil that you can't really get GDP to go negative with an oil shock the way you could in the 70s. So we're in a very strong position, but it's really heightens the strength by the fact that we've got a productivity boom from artificial intelligence, we've got a capital spending boom because of the big, beautiful bill, and we've got incomes growing the fastest we've seen since back around 2018. And so all the fundamentals of our economy are really, really strong. If Iran thinks that they're going to get President Trump to back down because they're going to make our economy weak, then they just don't understand economics.
Just from a first-person point of view, there's economic advisor Kevin Hassett discussing the state of the economy. I've been pounding the drumbeat that perhaps around this time this year, when people start getting their tax returns back and start getting their refunds back and are starting to enjoy the tax cuts from the big, beautiful bill, maybe that's when the sentiment will start to turn around. Again, just from my point of view, I did my taxes last week, and I'll just say that we are in a much stronger and less painful position than we have been for the last several years. That's just my family. Hopefully that's the same story or similar story elsewhere around the country. When we come back, a couple of major developments in our own hemisphere and more. That's coming up next. Here's Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
מה שאלת אותי?
ראש הממשלה אומרים ברשת שאתה בכלל מת?
אני מת על קפה, אתה יודע מה? אני מת על העם שלי. איך הם מתנהגים?
There is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a video posted on Sunday at a coffee shop being asked by the person running the camera, I heard you were dead. And Netanyahu responds by saying, I'm dying for coffee. Do you want to count my fingers? This is in response to this fiction that was stirred up over the last several days by pro-Iran, pro-access forces and mouthpieces, trying to get this narrative going that Netanyahu had been killed in an airstrike and that they posted a video that was AI generated, something about his hands having 6 fingers. And so that's the comment about, hey, you want to count my fingers? I'm dying for coffee. Just utter humiliation. The ops, if you're on social media, the psyops about this war are becoming increasingly easy to spot. And I think it's because the forces who are in favor of Iran for one reason or another, they're getting increasingly lazy and or desperate. So they spin up narratives. Well, you know what? Just take it like this. If you were trying to cover up the fact that your brand new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, if you were trying to cover up the fact that he's probably incapacitated or dead, you would spin up some fiction about Benjamin Netanyahu being incapacitated or dead. Because evil always projects onto others precisely what they are guilty of. Let's go back at home, closer to home. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel confirmed Friday his government is in talks with the U.S. That's after President Trump floated a friendly takeover of the communist island. Diaz-Canel said in an interview, in a televised statement, I should say, quote, "These talks have been aimed at finding solutions through dialogue to the bilateral differences we have between the two nations. International factors have facilitated these exchanges." I wonder what international factors he's talking about. Maybe looking to the south in Venezuela, looking to the east in Iran. Cuban President Diaz-Canel also said that the talks are being conducted on the basis of equality and respect for both countries' political systems, sovereignty, and self-determination of our governments. This follows a weekend of unrest, really a couple of weeks of unrest, as Cuba faces its largest energy crisis in recent memory. There were reports of gangs of protesters setting fire to different communist local headquarters around the island. Basically, what this reads like to me is that the communist government of Cuba saw exactly what happened to their buddies in Caracas and are opting for the whatever the option is that is not the way of pain. That's what they're opting for. I would love to see Cuba become a state, in the next 15 to 20 years. Seems like that would be a fun territory to add to our ledger. Also, for the first time, mentioned Caracas, the United States flag. The United States flag flying for the first time over the embassy in Venezuela for the first time in 7 years. How about that? Let's go to this. Back to Tucker Carlson, who said that he believes that the CIA has been spying on his texts and that it's involved with some people in Iran that he was talking to before the start of the war. He believes that the CIA is preparing a criminal referral to the DOJ for some sort of violation of the Foreign Agent Registration Act. That's the story. This is my opinion, I could be wrong. I could be mishearing it. I listened to the entire 5-minute video he put out on social media where he talked about this, and it sounds to me like he's trying to get ahead of a story, cast himself as a victim. Naturally, this has caused people to wonder, if this is true, why was Tucker Carlson at the White House multiple times over the past few months, including, I think, just days before the launch of Operation Epic Fury? One-on-one meeting in the Oval Office with President Trump. Just days before Operation Epic Fury. I want to read this post that I think sums up this line of thinking. Get ready for this. This is from an account named Dandolph, but I think it speaks well for what people are seeing here. He's addressing this to Tucker Carlson. Quote, "I know you think you're smart, but everyone knew you were a foreign asset and you were used as counterintelligence asset. I described in my article on the war, Tucker was the Iranian spy. You got used as a counter-intel asset to convince them, Iran, nothing was happening. You got used, Tucker, to kill the Iranian leadership. You personally were one of the key reasons they believed nothing was happening, which gave them the confidence to convene a meeting with their entire high command. You did your job well, being a traitor. Imagine thinking you'd get a prime time slot with the president on the eve of a war after repeatedly humiliating him and calling him a retard multiple times publicly. You are as arrogant as you are stupid. But now your usefulness has ended and it's time to go. Good luck, my guy. You're going to need it. Thanks for helping us kill all your friends, though. You did great work." I think Tucker Carlson is independently wealthy. Why he would need a paycheck from a foreign government is beyond me. Maybe it's not about the paycheck. Maybe it's about something else. Did you ever think about that? I think it's entirely possible that with his ego and his just reflexive contrarianism, that, yeah, I'm going to help a foreign government, but I'm going to cast myself as a peacemaker in the process. Trump and our intelligence apparatus caught wind of the fact that maybe Tucker Carlson was a foreign asset, kept that under wraps until the time was right, invited him to the White House multiple times to give the appearance to the Iranians that, yes, Tucker Carlson still has the ear of the president. Meanwhile, President Trump was just feeding him faulty, wrong information this entire time. Or maybe accurate information, selective information, until it was time to feed him wrong information and lure the Iranian leadership out into the open. I think that's entirely possible. If it is true that Tucker Carlson was working for nefarious forces abroad, and it's verifiable, he should go to jail, prison for a long, long time. That's going to do it for a Monday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.